fellow members of the Esoteric Order of Gamers. Peter, Universal Head here, and I want to show you something new. It's a terrain set by Warcradle Studios called Amiga Defense Line. And there's a whole lot of stuff packed in here. There's walkways, bunkers, barricades, satellite, watchtower, heaps and heaps of stuff for your sci-fi tabletop. Great stuff for military games and tabletop miniatures war games. The lovely folks at Warcradle Studios sent me the Dystopian Wars starter set, Hunt for the Prometheus, and I'm doing a whole series of videos on how to build those and paint them. But they've also sent me this terrain, and I do love a spectacular looking tabletop to play tabletop miniatures war games on. Warcradle Scenics MDF terrain, this one is the Amiga Defense Line. Let's get into it. Well, let's get started. Inside the box we've got a huge amount of MDF terrain. Each one is individually shrink wrapped, and each one is a terrain piece or a set of terrain pieces. All the instructions are here in a PDF document which I've copied onto my iPad so I can access them easily. So I'm going to do them pack by pack. Here we've got a large bunker which is several sheets, as you can see. There's a watchtower, walkways, a small bunker, barricades, satellite, a foxhole, and armoured containers there, and tunnels. So much stuff to do. Let's dive right in with the biggest one, and it is a large bunker. That particular smell of laser cut MDF. Now, of course, the thing you're going to need the most is a scalpel. The nice fresh blade, and of course whenever you're using a scalpel, be very careful, watch your fingers, always control the amount of force that you're using, and always be aware of where your fingers are, especially if they're in front of the blade. So be very, very careful, because it's very easy to cut yourself, and I've done it many times. So what I'm going to start doing is cutting out some of these pieces, and look, I'm amazed to see already some of them are just falling straight out of the MDF, so they've been well cut. And it should be very easy to get all the individual pieces out. If there's bits where it's still quite joined to the framework, I can get my scalpel and just carefully cut that. Now, if there are any nubs remaining that are a problem, I could use a little bit of sandpaper, but I'm not anticipating too much difficulty in that regard. I won't really have to do much of this because these are very nicely laser cut, and look, they're just falling out of the frames. Very easy. So I think I'll just pop out the large pieces first. We'll leave all the finer details till later. There's some nice little details there. Look, there's a little fan there, a nice detailed bit of grill that's already been cut out. It's amazing what you can do with MDF terrain. And also nice to see that some of these bits are pre-coloured as well. This is a darker grey for some of the areas. Of course, when I finish this, I will be painting the entire piece, so that won't matter so much. But if you can't be bothered painting it, it's nice to see some bits are already a different tone. And really nice stuff like this. There's a pre-painted texture on, so that looks like a bit of a metallic gantry. Now, I've seen a few MDF kits over the years, and I've got to say there are a few things about this that impressed me right from the off. That is that the MDF is nice and thick. It's good thickness, it's not too thin. The other thing is that these pieces are popping out so easily. They're popping out easier than cardboard counters would out of a board game sheet. I haven't had to use a scalpel at all because they just come out so cleanly. That is just amazing and saves a lot of time when you're putting these together. The other thing is that the MDF itself has a slight texture to it. It's a bit difficult to see, but it just has a little bit of texture. I don't know how they've got that on the wood, but it makes it a little bit more interesting, and I imagine that it will take paint. It has a little bit of a tooth that will take paint a bit better, and it has a more realistic texture. So that's another thing I really appreciate. So far doing well. I'm just cutting out all these pieces from the large bunker set and arranging them in piles before I start building. That's all the bits cut out from the bunker sheets, and again I'm just really impressed about how easily they came out from the sheets. You can see some of these pieces are very finely detailed. I haven't had to use the scalpel at all during that whole process. They just popped out of the sheet really easily, and because some of these are quite fragile, I'm really impressed by the fact that I didn't have to use a scalpel and to do that. So great stuff, really impressive. Now the first thing to do is put these wall sections together. Each one is made up of 2 pieces which go together to make a double thickness wall. It's easy to identify them from the PDF to see which ones go together. So I'm using PVA glue, of course, for doing all my gluing because it's perfect for wood. I've also got a self-healing mat underneath everything. I'm working on that. I highly recommend getting one of these if you do a lot of hobby work. It's really handy. You can see this one's got a lot of use over the years. And also cotton tips are really good for cleaning up excess bits of glue, especially in corners that are hard to get to, and that can clean up any extra glue that squirts out when you stick things together. So the first thing I'll do is put a bit of glue on here, not too much. I don't want it to squirt out from the sides too much, but I want to cover most of the area. Put those together, make sure the tops are lined up perfectly. Apply a bit of pressure. You may also want to put a weight, a book or something on top of it while it dries, but it shouldn't take too long to dry initially, so you could probably just press it down like this. Okay, the next part are some corner pieces. Take these pieces here and these fine bits. And remember, when you're making all these bits, sometimes there'll be a side which is obviously not the side you want to see. On the other side there might be some engraving or something as well, so just be careful you pick the right side when you're putting your pieces together. A little bit of glue on there. That slots in there. Just wipe off the excess with your finger. And then this piece, and this is a perfect example, this has an engraving on the top there, so you want that visible, you don't want to glue that down. So I'll glue on the other side of that and attach that there. Always good to put it against the flat surface to make sure that everything's lined up neatly. Then I get one of these almost triangular pieces, glue along here, and attach that to the strut. Hold that until it dries. Then there are 2 of these tiny struts. They go on the back side of it. One piece across here, like so, and another one at the bottom. And there we go, 4 corner pieces like that. Now keep in mind 2 of them have an angle like so, so make sure you stick the right pieces on so that's showing on the outside. Then we get these pieces and these stick on the outside like that. And the final result is something like that. Next up there's 8 pieces using these triangular bits. Now make sure the engraved side is on the outside and there's the small rectangle at the bottom like so. Get those pieces and they go with these small bits and they just fit in there and there. Glue them together so you have this kind of sandwich. You can also, there's some decorative pieces here, these little skulls, you can attach those to the bottom. I'm going to leave those off just for the moment because I haven't decided whether I want to go with a sort of skull motif or keep these more generic. After making 8 of those little triangles, I've then got 3 to make of a side piece which also use triangles, but in this case we use one which is blank and doesn't have any holes in it, and then on either side the one with the large slot in it. So stick these 3 together and then these get these pieces put on the side and they end up like that. There's the final piece. Now when you make these side pieces, be careful that you put the right lengths attached to the middle pieces. And the best way to do that is to lay out your walls and make sure they match up. So that matches that length. That one's a little bit shorter. This one has the single long piece and the tiny short piece. And this one is the same width as that one. So be careful, because it can be a little bit confusing if you don't line it up with the walls correctly. Now it's time to start attaching the pieces, and they all fit rather nicely in. They slot into there, so I'll put a bit of glue in the middle slot. Goes in there. And then two of these triangular pieces go in the sides. So a generous amount of glue in there. That slots into there. Remember, if too much glue is in there, it'll come squirting out, so you can use your little Q-tip to clean it up. And there's one over this side. Like so. There's one wall piece. You might want to put on some music while you're doing this, because you're going to be spending quite a bit of time holding these pieces together just while they dry. Not fully, but at least enough to have a firm bond. On the other side of this piece, there are two, what I presume are steps or gantries leading up to the observation slot. So stick those in like so. And on this other piece, there's something similar. We're putting this piece along here, these corner pieces on the corners, like that. And then on the other side, there are also two gantries as well. These ones are much wider. This piece with the doorway is similar. It has two side bits that go in like that. And then it has these bits, and these attached just on either side of the doorway, like that. There's a nice little door piece here. There are these two pieces like this. These two bits at the top and bottom glue into there to make the door, and then the door will swing freely in and out. And that fits beautifully flush against the inside edge. And there you've got your door, which should swing pretty freely. There's a nice ladder on the outside of this wall section, so you can climb to the roof, and you take these individual pieces and just glue them in like that, and you'll have the rungs for your ladder. And that turns out really nicely. And that has a ladder on the inside of the wall as well. Now all those sections are dry, it's time to put them all together into the main shape of my bunker. And this is going to be quite a large thing when it's finished. I've just done a rough fit of how everything goes together. These are the corner pieces. These are the two flat corner pieces, and these ones have an angle because they go up to this higher roof. So make sure you get the right ones in the right places. They're very easy to fit together. Here's the sample one. There's two holes, so the struts fit in the holes like that. Glue those together and do the same all the way around. While that's drying, I'll prepare the roof. Here's the big roof section. This framework goes on top of it. And then the trapdoor is made up of this disc, which goes underneath, like so. The trapdoor will sit on top of that. There's a little thing to lift the trapdoor with. And then finally there's a frame around the outside. So I've let that dry overnight, and it's got a nice solid join now. There's the main structure of my building. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? It's quite large. And if you put the roof on, like so, and then there's a little trapdoor that goes in there. Look at that. Huge bunker. Now, there are lots of other extra little bits you can put on here for decoration. And if you want more of a sort of Warhammer 40,000 Gothic look, these might be things you want to do. They're these little skull pieces. They can stick on the bottom like that. And there are also some kind of Gothic archways, which can go on this side. They're just sort of decorative elements that go over here, like that, and like that.
which is quite nice, but I've decided to go for a more generic sci-fi look for this, so I'm not going to use those extra bits. However, there are some nice bits that you can add to add more detail. There's a nice bit there that goes around that. There's another one for this window, which has got some added pieces on it. That goes like this, nice little control panel there, which is cute. And then there's even fine pieces. You can see the little pipe there continues. You can attach it there and then it goes around the corner, which is nice. So I might keep those pieces, I like those. I'm just staying away from the more skull gothic kind of elements. Though I must admit I do have these kind of archways on the side, which, you know, are quite nice. I might actually remove that buttress piece and just have the bit going down. The good thing about things like this is that you can modify them any way you like for the look that you want. There's also some pieces like little control panels and things that stick to the walls, stuff like that. And there's a ladder as well that leads to the roof. So I'll add some of these elements. There are these long pieces here. These come in sets of 3, so they attach together, glue together to make a thick piece like this. And then these run along the top to form a sort of a bar or a kind of thing to stop people climbing onto the roof. I think I'll add those as well. So let me add some of these little bits and then we'll have finished with this bunker and move on to some other pieces of this amazing Amiga defense line set. You can see some of these extra details to bring things alive. A little framework on the windows, junction boxes, a ladder, there's a light above the door. It's a particularly lovely detailed little MDF piece there. And I love things like this fan behind the grill. It's amazing actually the fine level of detail that they can cut out of MDF these days. So again, I could put on these extra pieces which go along the top here. These go along, for example, here. And you've got little girder bits that sit up. There's a whole row of those that go along there. But at the moment, I'm going to keep it simple and I'll wait till I finish all the buildings before I make a decision whether to add those details. Because I'm keeping these as much more generic sci-fi rather than Warhammer 40k. And I'm quite happy with this look so far. Right, let's move on to the next bunker. Okay, so here's the small bunker, and I'm not going to show you how to make this one because it's exactly the same as the large bunker, only a little bit smaller on the sides, as you can see. There's a nice outdoor ladder here, another firing slot, some lovely detail stuff on the outside, and of course a door that opens, nice vent here. But same pieces, same side pieces that are made in exactly the same way, and the same little sandwich wedges that put it all the base parts together. So nothing new there. Then we've got the slots inside that you can put your miniatures on so they can look out the slot, and of course a roof. So small bunker, lovely sized building, really nice. That one and the large bunker are going to be really impressive on the tabletop, and really I am going to paint these, but they look pretty good unpainted, don't they? I mean, with the two-tone look and sort of textures on the outside. And this one has some lovely splatters of blood on the outside where I cut myself with a scalpel. Really nice. That doesn't come with the kit, it's extra. Right, let's move on to the next one, and the next one I'm going to do is the walkways. That's the next largest pack in the set. Let's build those. Okay, let's get building the walkways. And if you do hear a little bit of noise in the background, I'm sorry for that, but it's pouring down with rain outside. It's a perfect day to sit inside and make MDF terrain. Now, I've got all the pieces from the walkways. These are the walkways themselves. Now, there's a lovely grill on here, as you can see, but you do have to pop out all these tiny pieces. A pair of tweezers is good for that, and you can poke out all the little squares. They come out very easily, and you get this really nice grill there. That's great. There's a whole lot of archways here. Now, the good thing about these walkways is they're quite solid because you actually put multiple pieces together to give you solid pieces. So, for example, you've got a piece like this, and then you have one like, if I can find the right bit, this. That goes onto there, so you can see a bit of detailing through there. And then on the other side, we've got this piece with little holes for the stair risers, and that attaches. So you get a relatively solid 3 thickness piece like that. If you make 2 of those and then put the stairs in between them, you've got a stairway. So let's try doing that first. And as always, when you're punching these out of the sheets, be careful, because if you go a little bit too fast, you can break things if you're not careful, because there's a lot of fine detail here. So that goes there. We'll just make sure it's lined up on the bases of the columns. Again, there's a bit of detailing there, so if you can't be bothered painting, there is detailing. Then we've got another piece at the back. That glues on there. Make sure it's all lined up well. Now I'll make another one for the other side. Now remember, of course, that white glue dries clear, so as long as you don't have great globules of it, it will dry clear. Now the next thing to do is get all these little risers, like so, little stair risers, and I'll glue them in right now. Now you can mix and match there. There's some grill ones, there's some straight ones, and that gives the feeling of it being a little bit repaired over time. It's up to you. There's even one with a little bit of wood texture on it. You could use that too. I'm going to pop them all in one side like that, let them dry a bit. While that's drying, I'll get these top walkways, and they have frameworks to attach, so that one goes on top of there. Now packing out those holes is important because you can see that they form the places where the archways are going to attach. Okay, there are my 3 walkways. Now there are archways that are holding up the walkways, and they're made up with actually 4 pieces. So we've got one with that detailing on that side, and then that's faced with another one with detailing facing that way, and then both of them have archway detail like that. And that all glues together into a nice thick column. The great thing with MDF scenery is that white glue is so easy to work with. Forms a relatively strong bond. It dries clear and it isn't too messy. Doesn't stick to your hands like super glue. There we go. Now make sure all these column edges are lined up, right, both at the base and the sides. There you go. Nice thick column. There's quite a few of those. There's a little pile here, so I'll make those up. By the way, when you're making these pieces, you might want to keep some of these offcuts. They're nice little bits of MDF and are useful for making terrain bits or bases or anything. So keep a box full of those things. Why put them to waste? Okay, I've made up those frames. As you can see, there are 2 different stairways, that one there and this one. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these archways, like that, and 3 walkways. The one thing to do on these archways is to attach these kind of side pieces. They fit like so on either side. So that just gives the impression of even more solidity. And then with this one, I want to carefully put a bit of glue on these ends. And then attach this piece. This is probably going to be a little bit tricky, but let's see how I go. Now you can see they're designed so you could probably put the bases of miniatures in between the slots, so they can be, so your miniatures can be sitting halfway up the stairs, which is it's nice that they've designed it with miniatures in mind. There we go, and I'll just hold that together for a while it dries. And here are the walkways all put together, and you can of course put these in any configurations you like. They come apart like so. It's very easy. Just attach these pieces to the 2 holes on the bottom. They just slot in. There's 2 little slots, and then you can place that over there and move these different configurations around. They're a little bit shaky if you don't glue those pieces in. I think I will glue them in. There's really no reason not to, I don't think. Depends how you want to set up this configuration. Perhaps even magnetise them might be a solution. But they're nice solid walkways, and these stairs are good. As I said, you can put your miniatures in between the rises of the stairs. So yeah, really nice. I could have done with 2 of those. They're really nice walkways. 2 sets would have been really nice, but they will look good, especially for games for things like Necromunda. Okay, that's the walkways done. What's next? Next up, we've got this Watchtower. It's just 2 sheets. Again, these are just falling out beautifully. This looks pretty straightforward. Let's get all these pieces out. Okay, I've got all my bits. So we have, don't need that bit. Does that pop out as well? Yes, it does. And another bit in there. There are times when you just have to be a little bit patient and hold something while it dries. There's another piece that closes up that rectangle. Make sure that's square. Let that dry. There's a little framework piece that goes over here and a whole lot of rungs that go down the side of there so someone can climb up into the watchtower. Make sure they're all straight, sticking out at 90 degrees from the superstructure. Next up I've got the top platform, and there's a framework that goes over the top of that. And then there are some barrier pieces. This is the front bit. Make sure that's straight. 2 side pieces and corner pieces. Of course, the good thing about making a set like this is after you've made 1 or 2 of the pieces, you kind of get the idea of the thought behind how everything is constructed. So you notice the same ways of construction coming up, and it makes it faster to make the pieces. This will of course attach to the top of the tower, but I'll do that last. There are 2 pieces like this that glue together, and they attach there and they line up with the engraved lines. Again, you might want to hold all those pieces in place so they glue. These struts attach together, and then there's one piece that goes on like so. There's also a floor piece with an outline to that as well. You know, I've discovered a mistake here. There's one little tab on these, so one of them with a 1 tab should go on one without a tab. In both cases, I attached the wrong ones together, so that was close. You've got a little bit of lead time before the glue dries, so you can discover mistakes like that pretty easily. There we go. So there's only a single tab at the top now. Now there's a few traps for the unwary when making this one. Thing is that initially I thought this went right over the hole. Of course it doesn't, because you have to get up through the hole. So make sure the ladder is on the inside here and you can come up through the hole. There's 2 little tabs on the top of this tower that fit into the tabs on the edge in the front like so. And that's how the tower goes like that. Now when you're putting on a base, you have a choice. You can either just pop it onto this little base here like that. Now you've got 2 struts at the bottom as well, remember these ones, and they go there and there. They're supportive struts for the back piece, like so. So you can either have it on just like that, or instead you can put it on the base like that and have these struts go into the slots on this base. So it forms a whole thing like that on a base with the struts. Now it's important you can't do both, because if you attach the base to this and you put it on this large base, these struts won't go right through these holes. They'll just sort of waver around on the top. So choose one, or you can use both. I'm just going to keep this separate and put it like this, attach these 2 struts to that, and then I can sit on this base or just sit it on this base depending which one I want. When you're attaching these struts, just make sure that the side with the tab attached to it goes on the outer, like that. And same with this one, tab facing away from the centre of the tower. And that'll give you the right width to fit in the holes on the base. Next piece I'm making is a satellite. Here are all the pieces. And we're starting off with the door piece, which is this bit here. And there's a little top piece to the door, which goes in the back. The hole facing towards this side. Then we get the door itself and attach this outer frame to it. Now there's 2 large pieces like this. They go together with this square piece in the middle. So that attaches to the base like so. And you can see I've made a mistake there because I put the engravings on the inside. That should be on the outer. Now I've got these 2 pieces that go in. This is the one I just made with the door lintel at the top. And I'll just put a bit of glue on the bottom. Where does it slot? Now there are 2 slots there that goes into. Quite a snug little fit, keeps everything together, that's quite neat. I do like it when there are slots. I could have done with a few more slots through the thing because it gives it a bit more strength. Gives the construction more strength than just gluing things together. And that's quite a strong little construction. Oh, there's one crucial thing I forgot to do, and that's before I slot this one in. Oh my goodness, put the door in. Ah, dear oh dear. Yes, don't forget the door. Now I've got that framework, I'll put on the roof. This is the bit here. And you can see there's two slots in here which are a bit sort of off kilter. So you want to put the door facing this way and the slots facing this way. This is going to sit in the top. There we go, nice and snug. It's a good thing about laser cut stuff, it's always so precise, isn't it? That's that. Now there are some struts holding that down. Just note also that these longer pieces, they're longer along the roof, go on that side, and the shorter pieces go on that side. Kind of gets dirty because there is a kind of film on the MDF of sort of dirt and soot from the cutting. So your hands will get dirty when you do this. So it's very difficult to keep a clean, pristine surface if you're not planning to paint this. While I'm waiting for that to dry, I'll just make the pieces of the satellite dish. And they use this tiny piece. Bit of glue on there. There's a small piece and a larger piece. The small piece goes in like so. A little bit of glue along the top. And the other one goes in like that. There's also a central column piece. So we've got this bit and two side pieces like this. They attach like that. There we go, it's quite neat. Okay, let's go back to our little base piece here. We recognise these bits from our bunkers. And of course these triangular pieces. And that slides into there. There's just basically more of those triangular pieces slot in. So you've got one here, one over here. There's a double-sided one that goes in there. And then there's a larger one like this, which slots in at the back. So it's quite a sturdy building with sloping sides. There are also some decorative pieces you can put on this to make it look more Gothic. Again, I'm going to leave those off. Now there's our satellite dish, which will sit on the top here. That's just overlapping those little bits of struts a little bit, which is a shame, so I'm just going to chop those off. Okay. Then there are side pieces. Now it looks like you just placed this circular piece sitting in there free form, and I think that's so you can turn your satellite around. So I'm just going to leave it in there and attach these side bits. The instructions are quite clear, they're good. Because they're language neutral, some things could do with a little bit more explanation, and it also would be good to see 360 degree views of the final things, either photos in the PDF. It would just be handy sometimes to just see that you're putting everything in the right spot. So that's hopefully okay. Now there's very little joining this thing. There's just a very tiny little piece of wood, so yeah, that's quite a fragile join. Not too crazy about that. That could have been made a little bit stronger. That's just you can see there's just a tiny little piece there where it joins. Now I suppose once they're all attached, they will reinforce each other, which is better, but initially it's a bit difficult. You really got to wait for each one. I think I'm going to use quite a bit more glue and then really wait till each one is dry before I attach the next, so this will take a little bit of time. As you can see, I really don't want this falling apart on me as I make it, so I've just put in two sections and then I put quite a lot of glue in there, and I'm just going to let that dry completely. It'll go clear before I place the next one. I really want a strong framework of at least two before I start putting any more in. Let's finish off the satellite. We've got the finished building, of course. And this is the satellite dish, which I've dried overnight, so it's quite a solid construction now. I've put a lot of extra glue around the outside of that, so it was quite sturdy. There's a central piece that sticks in there. And then we've got our tower, some tiny pieces on the sides. This bit slots in here. And that's quite a firm fit. I'm not even going to glue that. That's really firm, so that sticks in there. And then our satellite attaches very neatly like that. And then I'll glue that to this. Now the question is, do I want this to be able to turn around or not? Yeah, I quite like that. I think I'm going to leave that free floating in there. It sits quite comfortably like that, and I can turn my satellite around to face a target if I wish. And there it is, very impressive battlefield piece, that big satellite. It can turn around. And I've actually just attached that to the pole. I haven't glued it, so I can take this off for easier storage if I want to. But that's a pretty impressive model for the tabletop. Let's move on to the armoured containers. So we've got a base piece, which is this one. Bit of glue around that. This has got 2 holes in it for a door. Then there are 2 walls. Make sure the engraving is on the outside, of course. Right, then there are 2 small door pieces like this. Some little struts. These ones, 4 tiny cross pieces. These bits go across just about there. Doesn't matter exactly where. These are actually sticking out like so. So then I'll do the same on the other door, making sure these cross pieces line up. Right, let's let those dry. Then we've got a roof piece for this. Again, making sure the holes are on this end. I'm going to wait, of course, until these doors are dry because they're going to slot into there. But while I'm waiting, I can put the back on, and that is that piece with the fan. And I've made a mistake already because these tabs should go away from the door. So I'll just swap these 2 sides. Luckily they hadn't dried yet. So many traps. You really got to look at the diagram very, very closely. So as I said, these little tabs go away from the door on the opposite side. And the reason I discovered that, of course, is because the tabs attach to the back side like that. So some nice detailing here. And I do quite like the way the burning of the wood as it cuts gives it a sort of shading, even though I am going to paint them later. There's some other detailing along this back side of the door, and they are these 2 pieces, like this, and also another vent. And the vent goes over the fan, of course. And then these 2 bits, I'll put these roughly where I put them on the other doors. Right, now those doors have dried a bit, so make sure, of course, the circles are up this end. So I can roughly place that in position, and then before I close it up, make sure these little doors are in position. Oh, it's very careful. You really almost need 2 hands for this. There we go. It snaps together. That's a really nice looking container. Look at that. So I'll just leave that like that, but hopefully I'll be able to open that with those pieces later. Here's our second armoured container, which is slightly different. Now you really have to study these diagrams to make sure you get everything in the right spot. So that tab goes to the back again, as the last one did. Then this side wall has this piece at the bottom. Then we've got a roof bit which also has a tab that goes in there. Now in this case, this one has a sort of ramp piece like this. Actually, it's this one with no gaps in it. That piece should have a hole down the bottom. Ah, that's interesting. I think this is a mistake actually, because that should mirror that wall and it doesn't. Huh. I'll get a little hand drill and I'll drill the hole here. Make it a little bit bigger with a scalpel so it matches. It's a shame, that does look like a mistake, but you know, these things happen and it's very easy to fix them. There we go, I've made my own hole. So that goes down there and the holes match up. Not forgetting, of course, to put the ramp in. There we go. See, it all works eventually. It's a nice ramp. There is then the last back piece, and that will fit neatly in there. There we go. Another nice container. And there's some extra decorative elements to that, which can attach to give a bit of, there's a skull on there, but you know, if you want a bit of Gothic flavouring. So they go on there and they go on the sides. and on the ends as well, so that can all go in there. I'm not so sure about that. I'm going to think about that. I might just have a empty box, or I might attach those later, but you can attach those decorative elements to this box if you like. This has a whole lot of extra little pieces. We've got these tiny bits, and they go in these holes. Make sure they're lined up. Then there are a whole lot of these little pieces, and then the other struts go all the way down the sides. And there's the second container, the first container, and it's really nice. A lot of lovely detail in that one, and all those pieces are attached. I've got a heap of AT43 containers, so I don't really need more containers, but these ones are really nice, and I think will go with them quite well. Good doors too. Now I'm going to do the tunnel entrance, and you get 2 of these, so everything I do, you do twice. First there's a doorway. Again, we've got another one of these doorway pieces with a top piece. Same construction as before, so we're starting to just sort of work out how everything works now, doing the same tasks over and over. There we go. So I don't think I'll go into every part of making this because, as I said, the pieces are kind of similar to the satellite. So I'm making that up. The front is, as I said, similar to the satellite. There is a little trick here though. At first it looks like you stick 4 of these pieces together and slot that in there. In fact, you don't. You just get these little frontage pieces, and this is kind of like, you know, someone building a house and using a strip of fake stone on the front, but you get these 3 pieces that attach thin bits and then attach a solid piece to it like that, and then that slots into there. Now, unfortunately, errors do happen. I have a sheet here which is part of the Foxhole one, and as you can see, it hasn't gone through the other side of the sheet. Just little dots, the laser hasn't gone all the way through. So this one is going to be a bit difficult. I'm going to have to get a scalpel and actually cut out all these pieces. So a bit of a shame there, but these things happen. A bit of a quality control issue. Here's the finished Foxhole. You can see construction methods very similar to the bunkers, except there are just a couple of small pieces here. So it's got an open side. It does also have a roof, which fits there. So very nice looking Foxhole. And we've got 2 of these tunnel entrances with doors. They look great. There's also some more detailing. If you want to put a bit more Gothic detailing on it, you can put these on the side. Again, I'm leaving them off, keeping them simple. And there's also a lot of general battlefield pieces like this, and heaps of these little tank traps, which are handy to throw around your battlefield. These ones also have more detailing in the way of these girders that point up, like so, and these kind of things. There's a whole row of them there. Again, these are on the bunkers. I'm leaving them off, but it adds even more detail to those. And you know, in the end I decided to put those girders on the top of the tunnel entrances. They look quite good, don't they? And we're almost at the end. The last thing is a set of barricades. They're very easy to make. There's a central piece here. I've stuck these 4 pieces in, and then I have my central wall. Just going to glue this together. Now, while I was cutting this out, I did come across one more sheet which unfortunately hadn't cut all the way through. It wasn't quite as bad as the initial one. So I had to spend a little bit of extra time just sort of cutting those out with a scalpel. It wasn't too bad. The first one was a little bit annoying. The second one wasn't too bad. So just be prepared. Hopefully it doesn't happen too often, but there are just a couple of instances where they weren't cut through completely. On the whole, apart from those 2 instances, they were all beautifully cut and fell out. So just a couple of small errors there. Now I'm going to run some glue down the central bit here, coming from that little notch, and then this goes right over the top and slots into the central notch. Clean up a bit of that extra glue. Then there are some side pieces like this, and they slot over the ends like that. And then normal triangular pieces, and I've got these the wrong way around because there's a engraving on there, of course. As I said, they slot over there and go into a slot at the bottom. And then there's another piece that makes up the end like that. Then you have the end pieces like that. When that's glued, you have a wall section, very sturdy looking, Gothic looking wall section like that. There are also some corner pieces made up from the same kind of construction we've used before. And these things hanging down, I'm not really sure what these are actually. It's a corner piece on our barricade, but I'm not sure what those are. But they look interesting. There are also some just end pieces like that. A tiny bit of wall section with two bits on either side attached to an end piece. And here's the final barricade setup. Again, there's more detailing. You can add spikes and things to these if you want to. There's also a choice of ends here. You can either use these simpler ones, which I prefer, or you could glue on these more complex ends. And here it is, complete, the Warcradle Scenics Amiga defense line. Now there's quite a bit of work putting all this together. You want to set aside at least one solid day. It took me a bit longer because I was filming. But also you're using white glue, so you've got to remember that takes a little bit longer to dry, so you have to be a bit patient. But you can see the results are very impressive. They certainly have a presence on the tabletop. They're nice and big. Thematically they all go together quite nicely. You can definitely make these more decorative with the Gothic elements. I've decided to leave most of those off, but you can make this look more like a Warhammer 40,000 themed tabletop if you wish. I was going for a more generic sci-fi look, but look at that. I mean, it's a full tabletop worth of stuff there in one box. There's some very nice little details, as you can see. I love the little ladders and the texturing on here. You know, and I'm starting to wonder if it's even worth going to the trouble of painting this because of the two-tone effect and the details. And it's also been a bit scuffed up by the burning of the wood where it's been laser cut out. I kind of like it as it is. So I think it is very well made. I only have two criticisms. One is that the instructions could be a little bit more detailed. You really have to study them closely to make sure that everything's going in the right spot. And at a few crucial points, it would be good to have a text or an icon pointing out little things that have to be correct. So there's a little bit of trial and error there. The other thing was, of course, is that I had two sheets that weren't cut completely through. That was frustrating, but not a huge deal. I could cut them out myself. It was just a bit time-consuming and frustrating. But apart from that, I'm very pleased with the quality and very impressed with the overall look of the set. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video on how to put together the Warcradle Scenics Amiga defense line. This video, of course, has been brought to you by the Esoteric Order of Gamers. You can find me at orderofgamers.com, and of course there are hundreds of other videos to watch on this YouTube channel, so subscribe if you haven't already, and visit the website for hundreds of rule summaries and references that you can download and put into your games. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.